Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Man, I have fallen so far behind on Seraphon videos. The new GHB came out, and it's been some pretty exciting stuff. We've been having a lot of fun playing here at home. I haven't made it to any tournaments lately, so I don't have anything to report on there. But let's talk a little bit about the state of Seraphon. So, I've had this slide deck together for a few weeks, and I just hadn't had time to make a video. And every time I load this up, I have to change these stats. So, Seraphon is not doing all that great. These stats are from Wohammer. Go check out wohammer.com. I'll link it below in the description. They run the stats on GTs and how everybody's doing. And Seraphon is not in the best shape right now. In fact, you can see them. You can see us down here at 41% win rate. It's not doing well. That's the lowest I can remember Seraphon being in what feels like years. In the last GHB, we were generally near the top for most of that season. So it's kind of surprising to see Seraphon this low at 41%. Down in the red, needs some buffs to get it back up into the green. You have some real outliers there at the top, like Fire Slayers and Daughters of Cain. It'll be interesting to see if that holds, as those win percentages are really high right now. But 41% for Seraphon isn't that great. So, what's causing that? Well, let's take a look at the battle profiles that came out in June. Yes, I know this is a few weeks ago. But I think this tells a little bit of the story. But also the new General's Handbook, I think, kind of tells the rest of it. So, when we look at what got updated for our battle profiles, not a whole lot changed, to be honest. Lord Kroak, which was, a standard in every single list, stayed the same points. Really, the only drops we had were the Ripperdactyl Chief and the Pterodon Chief, which were never taken. Taking 20 points off of them is not going to make them all of a sudden viable. They just don't do enough buffs. They don't do enough for your army. They're not like unlocking some really cool regiment options or anything, so I don't see that changing. They're super cheap heroes, but we have enough heroes we can usually figure out our regiment options without having to resort to those two. One of the biggest changes, I think, in this new General's Handbook is the Scourge of Ghyran Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur. We've talked about that Carnosaur already, and it is very good. And you're going to see this Carnosaur pop up in a lot of Seraphon lists, I think. It's kind of exciting to actually have a monster hero that's actually good. And so that's what this Scourge of Ghyran Carnosaur is. Does good damage, has some interesting buffs. Like a lot of our heroes don't have interesting buffs. This one actually does some interesting things. It combos well with the monstrous action, or the monstrous traits that we have. And just overall good piece. It is fragile. It does have a 4-up save. You can make that unrenderable with an enhancement, but even at that, this Carnosaur will die. It's not a tank, but it does have its utility. So you see this Carnosaur showing up in a lot of lists, and I think for good reason. So nothing else really changed on the heroes. Here over on the unit side, the only change we had was the Spawn of Chotek dropping 20 points to 100. At 100 points, I want to play it. I've played a couple games with 1 or 2 spawns when I had, those points left over, and they still just feel bad. 1 dice roll for that hit on a 4-up is what you're trying to hit on. It never works, and then the time it does, they save it, and it doesn't do the damage, and it doesn't get the buff. It just kind of feels like a waste. So at 100 points, I think you can take it, just hoping that you get that -1 to the enemy's save off. But in general, I don't think it's a huge buff for our army. Not at all. Here's where things start to hurt, though. So they added points to our different artifacts, enhancements, sometimes battle formations. It just kind of depends on what each army had. For Seraphon, they added points cost to our artifact Kotal Familiar. Now, this is the one that gives you the extra dice on a spell cast. So, very powerful, very good in the opponent's turn. If you're doing like a counter cast, you can throw this extra dice at it to not quite guarantee, but it can really help get that spell off in the opponent's turn. That's kind of what I always use it for. It's only once per battle, but now it costs 20 points. Okay, I'm willing to pay for that. I'm willing to pay 20 points for that. Well, now spell lore, the lore of celestial manipulation, also costs 20 points. Now, these two comboed up really well together because sometimes you really want that run and charge spell to go off, and so you throw your Kotal Familiar dice at that spell. Well, now that's up 40 points for that combination. Our faction terrain got a 20-point price increase for the Realm Shaper engine. There were times already where I would leave it off depending on what list I was taking, but in a wizard heavy list, you're definitely taking this because it does damage. Now, your wizard heavy list is already up 60 points. To add on to that, our universal manifestation lores went up. There's 4 of them that cost points and 2 that don't. Morbid, which was very good, costs 30 points now. In general, I think that's it's probably good to have some point costs to these things. But that does kind of just pile on to the cost increase of a lot of our lists that exist. Because if you're looking at a Slann, I think I've said this a couple times before, a Slann is only as good as the manifestation lore that you take with them. So now you're adding essentially 20 to 30 points for that Slann. I use Primal Energy a lot with some of my monster lists. I think that worked pretty well with that, and that one's up 20 points also. So we have kind of a hidden cost of about 80 points or so to our lists, sometimes a little bit more, in this new General's Handbook. So that's it. That's a unit. That's a unit you've got to figure out a way to get out of your list so you can fit these things in. Another thing that's pretty interesting is the number of objectives. This was from a video Radio Free Hammerhall did. I'll link that video below. It's pretty interesting. General's Handbook by the numbers, and he had figured out that the average number of objectives on each battle plan was 5. So we've seen an increase in the number of objectives on these battle plans, and so that in the last edition, a lot of very good Seraphon lists were kind of a castle list, and then they'd push out from there. This one, I think castle armies are gonna struggle a little bit more. You do have to be able to spread out on the board or go hit really hard and take out the enemy quickly. Is from my experience is kind of what it seems like this edition is doing. So you definitely do need to kind of spread out. One of the things as we look at why is Kroak, has he not been included in any of our well-performing lists so far? And I think one of the reasons is these increased point costs of all these things, the number of the objectives on battle plans, but also I think you'll see a lot of these battle plans will kind of play against Kroak. So if you're looking at a battle plan like this, where you kind of think you want Kroak to go control the middle, so he can have a nice big range of his spell to do mortal damage. Well, with the new rules for obscuring, Kroak has to be able to see units to hit him. To hit him with that spell, he has to be able to see them. Now, some battle plans I think Kroak is still pretty good on, but there's going to be a good handful of battle plans where he's not going to be very good. Because with these places of power, these objectives here and here are going to very quickly be made obscuring. Possibly turn 1. Well, yeah, you could. I think you can do it turn 1. Definitely turn 2. And if that middle is obscuring, it doesn't matter where Kroak is, unless he's in combat with him, he's not going to be able to do any mortal wounds to whatever's on that objective. If you were pushing him forward, they've made this obscuring. They'll hide behind here, hide behind here, hide behind here. You're not going to be able to have as many targets. I've played a couple games with Kroak so far, and you're still able to hit. I feel like I'm still able to hit units, but I'm not always able to hit the units I really want to. Sometimes it's just junk is what I'm pouring my mortals into, and not really those things that you're trying to get to take out those important units. And the terrain, in my experience, the terrain that is obscuring, like these existing ones, aren't as big a deal as when they turn an objective obscuring, and they can just hide an entire unit that's critical on that objective until they're ready to rush out, and Kroak just can't do anything against them. So I think some of those things kind of hurt. another battle plan like this one, these are going to quickly get turned into this entire. All of these are going to be obscuring. You're not going to be able to see anything. So even if you did get Kroak pushed towards the middle, what's he going to see? Everybody's going to be on these objectives, hiding from Kroak pretty quickly. So he plays a little bit differently this edition because you have to be able to see things to do their mortal wounds. So not only is everything that comes along with Kroak more expensive, you're going to have a lot less targets of opportunity, I think. If we look at some of the lists that did well, here was one of the lists from LVO that did extremely well, and you can see what its point costs have gone up so far. So the list was at 1990, but we've added 20 points for Celestial Manipulation lore, 30 points for Morbid, 20 points for Kotal Familiar, and then 20 points for our faction terrain. So that's 90 points more expensive that this list has gotten. So he's going to have to drop. He could either drop one of these two Hunters of Huanche to make the list fit. But that hurts because you need these things to play the game well. We've already done a lot of compromises through last edition through the last season on downgrading different units to make our points fit. So I think that kind of point increase plus the battle plan kind of nerf to Kroak might be what's kind of pushing us down a little bit. I do have a couple of lists that have done well over the past few weeks. Both of these lists I'm going to show are 4-1. I haven't seen any 5-0 lists in this new General's Handbook for Seraphon. I've seen these two 4-1s, a handful of 3-2s, and then a whole lot of 2s and 3s. So I think what you're going to see in these two lists is that Seraphon is playing just a lot more melee heavy, a lot more of an honest list. Just go smash face, and if you can table the other person, you'll do well. Wow, big brain strategy there. This was from Andrew Mate. So he's playing Sunclaw Starhost, which really buffs up all your source stuff. So that's including and Kroxigor. So any of your source things, and Kroxigor can make a move at the end of the turn and do some mortal wounds and then do a pile-in. So it's a pretty nice little buff, especially if you have a lot of source in Kroxigor. So looking at his list, we've got 2 drops, Lore of Celestial Manipulation, so he is paying the 20 points for that, and 20 points for Primal Energy. And then our battle tactic cards are Intercept and Recover and Restless Energy. We'll cover those here in a second. We see in our General's Regiment, we have the Scourge of Gyran, Saurus Oblon on Carnosaur, with Incandescent Retrices, which allows him to heal, Armor Cruncher, which is such a good monstrous trait, and then Beacon of the Stars. So Beacon of the Stars makes the Carnosaur unrendable, so it's going to be on a 4-up save no matter what, which into some armies is huge. Other ones, like if you're going into hordes or something, then you may wish that you didn't have that. But in general, it's a very good trait. So Armor Cruncher is fantastic. It is a dice roll on a 3-up. You get to subtract 1 from the save of the opponent that's in combat with you. Very good. Just a good damage multiplier for everything else that's fighting along with this Carnosaur. It kind of helps make up for the Carnosaur's lack of rend. The jaws are 2 rend, but everything else is 1. So this kind of helps it out. Got Reinforced Agrodon Lancers. I think you'll see those a lot in the lists that are doing well. This Carnosaur, and then a Reinforced unit of Lancers. 2 units of Warriors, which I really like Warriors in this edition so far, this General's Handbook. The Warriors actually are kind of feeling good. I can leave 10 Warriors off on an objective. I've even played around with a teleporting subfaction, and sometimes that works really well. Other times you just fail all your dice rolls and it does nothing. But teleporting, running, getting some Warriors over on an objective always feels good. They're a good screen. They're tougher than a lot of people think, especially if you've got the Asterism up for -1 rend. You're in your territory on an objective. All of a sudden, 10 Warriors are fairly hard to shift. These minimum units are a little bit easier to maneuver around, and if one dies, you're not that worried about it. A lot of times I found if I have a unit of 20 warriors on an objective, the opponent just goes to a different objective. So sometimes that's good because you can make them avoid those objectives. But a 10 block of warriors feels pretty good. All right, second regiment, we have Skink Starseer. So we have a 2-cast wizard. That's 170 points. Can shut off wards. Can give your army a 5-up ward if you roll well. And that's only once per game. And so a very good wizard. Still really nice to have. Unfortunately, the Skink Starseer does fly, so it doesn't benefit from some of the obscuring terrain rules, which is kind of a shame. But generally, it's going to be around some of your other units anyway, so it'll have guarded hero. But it would have been nice to be able to get obscuring on that Starseer. He's got a Bastillon with Arc of Soteg, does some good mortal wounds there, good roadblock, very tough to kill. And then a reinforced unit of Kroak. He does have the Realm Shaper engine in this list. So he is paying, 60 points for some premium stuff here, but it seemed to work out pretty well for me. He's got the Run and Charge spell. He's got Comet's Call if he wants to do some mortal wounds to a horde. He's got his Realm Shaper engine that he can park the Skink Starseer next to, or if he needs it in the list, sometimes I'll put like the Kroak off on an island with that Realm Shaper engine so that if somebody is coming to attack him, they get a +1 to save from that Realm Shaper engine. So there is a little bit of flexibility there if you need to. Screen them out with some warriors. They'll have to fight through the warriors, and then you can go hit them with your Kroak. So that works pretty well. So well done, Andrew, going 4-1 with the new Seraphon list. Next one I wanted to look at was Alex Donkin. This was from this past weekend. And this one is, man, I love this list. This is so great. This is also in Sunclaw, 2 drops. We got Restless Energy and Intercept and Recover as our battle tactics. We have a Carnosaur with Beastmaster. Beastmaster allows monsters and cavalry to go an extra 2 inches. So that's very nice, as long as you're within range of the Carnosaur. Incandescent Retrosis to heal an Ancient Defender, which is an interesting take there. So that one's a good one. A little bit different than doing Armor Cruncher. It's hard for me not to take Armor Cruncher as myself, just because I just love minus in their save. But it is on that dice roll. This is a way that you can kind of get a little bit more. You can get a little bit. Let's say like Ancient Defender. Now I've got to look it up again. Which one was Ancient Defender? Okay, yeah. It's the +1 to hit. It always confuses me because it doesn't make any sense. Ancient Defender, and yet here's more offensive power. So Ancient Defender is the one that gives +1 to hit for companion weapons. So it's very good for the Carnosaur because it gets it more consistent, and you don't have to use all-out attack on the Carnosaur. So you can use all-out attack for one of the Agronauts in this list. All right, so we've got that. We've got 12 Agrodons, or 12 Agrodon Lancers, and then 6 Kroak. Just a ton of beef here in this list. And then a second Saurus Old-Blood on Carnosaur. Beautiful. I love this. This is just all melee, all power. It's just going to come smash you in the face. It's going to move fast. This one, kind of depending on the battle plan, who you're going up against, you might go extra speed if you need to, or companion crit hits will be amazing in this list too. So, awesome list. This was at a very interesting GT, AOS Iron Man. I was looking at its listing in BCP, and they played all 5 games in one day. That is incredible. They started at like 9 a.m. and they didn't finish until after midnight. It was like 1 a.m. by the time they finished. So maybe part of the reason Alex won is because this was just such a straightforward list. You're not getting fatigued. You can take this to a long tournament and do well with it. So well done, Alex. Both of those lists. So I'm not going to go through and review every single battle tactic. I've played with all of the battle tactics cards so far. I haven't really narrowed down what my favorite ones are yet. I've been playing too many different lists, and so I haven't really nailed down exactly which ones are my favorite. But both of those lists, Andrew and Alex, both took Restless Energy and Intercept and Recover. So I wanted to pull those up here real quick just to show what they were. But Restless Energy is kind of your I'm going to kill you off of all the objectives by the end of the game type of thing. So the first one, you just got to control more, or you got to control one that your opponent controlled. And then the next ones are just basically control all the objectives. All the ones in their territory, and then all the ones on the board. So you're getting this if you're absolutely destroying the enemy. Intercept and recover is, where you assign 3 different units, or the opponent gets assigned 3 different units, and you have to go kill those 3. So both of those lists are just looking to kill a lot of stuff and win the game by domination. So some interesting picks there. All right, I like all those lists. Unfortunately, I don't really like that Seraphon is at 41% win rate, but it is possible to go 4-1, get the right matchups, play Seraphon the right way, like Andrew and Alex are doing, and you too can go 4-1. All right, guys, let me know below in the comments how y'all's games have been going. Had any good experiences yet? Oh, you know what? I was playing around early on. I decided I wanted to do this. Let's make a sidetrack instead of ending this video. I was wanting to do some Saurus heavy lists, and so like warriors. So I was playing around with a bunch of warriors, and I took them in the Eternal Star Host so I could teleport them around, and I took a Slon so that I could resurrect them. And I'm telling you what, there were some games where that army just feels amazing. I haven't really played a ton of Saurus Warriors, like Saurus Warrior heavy lists in the last season. I won a lot of monsters last season. So it felt amazing. Like when you would resurrect one of these units, then you would teleport things around, you'd buff them up. I was taking the Lore of the Jungle. Things were clicking, it would feel good. But then there were some games where you would fail your 3-ups roll to teleport anything. You'd fail your 4-up roll to bring anything back. You weren't getting cast off. It was like, all of a sudden it just felt so frustrating. All the things I was wanting to do are all based on dice rolls that aren't particularly reliable. And my opponent's over there going, well, I just automatically teleport maybe twice. So there are times when that Eternal Star Host with Saurus Warriors feels amazing in this edition, because if you can just plop like a giant unit of Saurus Warriors on an objective, that feels so good, especially if it's in your territory or right there on the edge of the 2 territories. Like, you're not shifting this. Not this turn, you're not. But a lot of that relies on those teleports to get those Saurus Warriors around. So I kind of shifted. I've been playing it a little bit different now, but it's been fun. The Carnosaur, the Scourge of Gyran Carnosaur feels so great. I love that thing right now. Now I need to go play that list that Alex has been playing. 2 Carnosaurs, all Agrodons and Kroak. Perfect. All right, guys. See y'all later.